Hello and welcome. In this presentation, we will discuss capacity timing. When making big investments in capacity, along with the size of the capacity, it's also important to take a decision on when this investment should be made. And the reason why it's important is because when we have a certain existing capacity, we are planning for the future, and the demand scenarios for the future can be of varying types. For example, we could have a scenario of demand which is highly optimistic. We could be expecting a huge demand in the future. You could expect a demand which is not as great, but at least it's growing over time. And then you can also have a scenario like demand scenario number four here, where the demand could go up, but then also can come down after some time. Now, the timing will play a very important role in how much you can generate revenue from those demand scenarios. An ill-timed decision can actually affect the company quite adversely. So it's very important to account for when that timing should be. Now, there are different timing strategies. You could aim to have a leading capacity strategy, which is essentially a strategy where you're investing in your capacity increases before the demand actually goes up to that extent. So we see this particular curve here is the demand curve, and whatever these chunks of investments we are making before the demand actually reaches a certain stage is the leading capacity strategy. And we know that capacity always is increased in lumps. So every time we are investing in capacity, we are increasing a discrete size of capacity because it cannot be continuously increased by just one unit. So that's an example of a leading capacity strategy, very important for certain industries where it's more important to actually ensure that you don't have any lost sale because of lack of capacity. The other example would be that of a lagging strategy, which is what you see here. A lagging strategy is one where you wait for the demand to reach a certain stage and then you start investing in capacity. So it's more looking at the overall market less optimistically than a leading capacity strategy might. So that lagging strategy is more risk averse strategy, and that's something which also will play an important role in how the timing decisions will be made. In aggregate planning, we discuss chase strategy, level strategy. So chase strategy is an aggregate capacity planning strategy where organizations are trying to chase the demand. So they ensure that as demand grows up, your capacity also increases at the same levels as the demand expects that capacity to be. So that chase strategy is something where, again, you could choose either lead or lag strategy, and that will be determined by the risk uh, aversion or risk taking strategy or taking uh, behavior of the organization which is involved in this decision. Um, we also have a hybrid timing strategy which combines the best of lead and lag strategy. And that's something which you see here. We have the demand curve, and you can see that during certain instances, the capacity is more than the demand, and other instances, capacity is less than the demand. So that's where you are leading as far as demand and capacity decisions are. The capacity is leading the demand, and there are certain times when capacity is lagging the demand. So the expectation is that there will be inventory buildup when the capacity is more than the demand. And that inventory will then help whenever the demand goes above the capacity. So those will be filled with that inventory buildup that we did previously. So there are advantages because it allows you to sort of minimize complete risk taking, but at the same time, it doesn't take you to the extreme in terms of risk aversion as well. And the disadvantage is that in certain circumstances, when you have this capacity shortage, you could end up losing some of the sales that might be there at that time if customers are not willing to rain check for those products. Or if you're building inventory, the cost can go up if your holding costs are pretty high. So those are things to be considered within the organization where this decision will be taken. Now, when we are taking these capacity timing decisions, we have to determine what the value of the decision is and how do we optimize the time. So within that, we have strategic timing and tactical timing, where strategic timing is the long-term capacity timing decisions. In this one, the objective is to capture some of the key capacity investment drivers, such as economies of scale and uncertainty over a very long period of time. And to do so, we'll have to use some tools that can help us capture those things. So we will, for example, utilize net present value models. We will use some basic timing models to understand how exactly companies should be investing in these capacities. That then will determine how the timing will be. And then real options, which is option value of waiting. Essentially, it's the difference between the net present value of not investing and net present value of investing. You try to see what exactly are those differences turning out to be. Also, you can take differences of investing this year versus next year, what the difference between those net present value is. Those are the ways in which we capture the real options or option value of waiting a year or few years. And tactical timing is one where it's closer to the aggregate planning idea where our time horizons are not very long. And here we are capturing key adjustment tactics. So capacity can be adjusted. We can adjust inventories. We can also look for customers to wait. So we have this capacity, inventory, and waiting triangle. And that can be utilized in an effective way over shorter period of times to manage those capacities. And in these situations, we really don't think in terms of economies of scale and uncertainty to the same extent as we would in strategic timing decisions. And here, the tools that we typically incorporate are capacity inventory build-up models. So there are some analytical models that capture the relationship between capacity and inventory. Likewise, there are certain models that capture the relationship between capacity and waiting. And then aggregate planning, the whole sales and operations planning. We can use linear programming models. So there are different types of tools that exist for tactical timing, and these are slightly different from the kind of tools that would be necessary for strategic timing decisions. And our objective, at least in terms of understanding strategic capacity timing, is more from the point of view of the net present value models that capture economies of scale and uncertainty. Now, some of the guidelines for managing capacity timing and adjustment. Number one, many times we can streamline project management so that the capacity timing decision can be optimized in a way such that we are working in parallel and doing certain activities that can be done independent of the timing and sizing decisions. So some of the design, engineering, procurement related decisions that will be eventually necessary for capacity decision can be done in parallel, and that would help make sure that the projects are managed in a better way. We can eliminate activities and reduce activity times and rework. So these are sort of non-value added activities. Sometimes we can eliminate them by using standard designs or reusing some of the previous designs. That can also help in streamlining project management. Number two, we have to also plan for uncertainty. And to plan for uncertainty, instead of one big bulk investment in capacity, we could modularize capacity investment and construction. So make small chunks of investment so that if in case there is a loss due to that capacity investment, it's not going to be extreme loss. We can increase adjustment flexibility, again, reducing chunk investment or increase resale value from whatever we are investing. That helps you increase the capacity adjustment flexibility. And number three, you can adapt and postpone capacity so that we can then ensure that the risks have been accounted for, at least the uncertainty related risks have been accounted for. We can do so by keeping the initial scope of that project simple and then include options for adjustments later. We can create adaptable capacity, flexible capacity, or smart capacity, which allows you for adding options later. But in the beginning, you start simple. So all these are some of the guidelines for speed and flexibility, which help when we are thinking in terms of capacity, timing, and adjustment. Thank you.